I refused to attend my daughter's graduation after she chose to live with my ex-husband and his affair partner and told her this on her graduation day. I, 42F, have been divorced from my ex-husband, Mark, 45M, for 5 years now. We were married for 15 years before I found out he was cheating on me with a coworker, Sarah, 38F. The discovery of the affair was devastating, and it tore our family apart. At the time of our divorce, our daughter Emily was 13. Despite my attempts to keep things civil for her sake, the divorce was messy and painful. Mark moved out of our family home and in with Sarah almost immediately after I confronted him about the affair. This made things even more difficult for Emily, who was already struggling to cope with the sudden changes in her life. During the divorce proceedings, we had to discuss custody arrangements for Emily. I wanted joint custody, thinking it would be best for her to maintain a relationship with both parents. However, Emily surprised us all by expressing her desire to live primarily with Mark. She said she felt more comfortable with him and Sarah, and that their new home felt more stable than ours did at the time. I was heartbroken by Emily's decision. I couldn't understand how she could choose to live with the man who had betrayed our family and the woman who had helped him do it. I tried to talk to Emily about it, to explain my side of things, but she was adamant. She said she didn't want to take sides, but she felt like Mark and Sarah's home was a better environment for her. The court granted Emily's wish, and she moved in with Mark and Sarah. I was given visitation rights, but Emily rarely wanted to spend time with me. When she did come over, things were tense and awkward. She would often cut our visits short, saying she had plans with Mark and Sarah or her friends. What hurt the most was hearing Emily call Sarah Mom. It happened about a year after the divorce. I had picked Emily up for one of our rare outings, and as we were leaving, she turned to Sarah and said, "Bye, Mom. I'll see you later." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. When I tried to talk to Emily about it later, she brushed it off, saying that Sarah was more of a mom to her now than I was. Over the next few years, my relationship with Emily continued to deteriorate. She became more distant, often canceling our plans at the last minute, or not showing up at all. When we did spend time together, she would talk endlessly about how great Mark and Sarah were, how much fun they had as a family, and how happy she was living with them. It felt like she was deliberately trying to hurt me. I tried to maintain a relationship with Emily, but it was hard. Every time I saw her, I was reminded of the life I had lost and the family that had been taken from me. I started to withdraw, protecting myself from the pain of rejection. I still sent birthday and holiday gifts, but our interactions became less and less frequent. Now, Emily is 18 and about to graduate from high school. Last week, she called me out of the blue. It was the first time we had spoken in months. She told me about her upcoming graduation and said she wanted me to attend. She said it would mean a lot to her if I could be there to celebrate this milestone with her. I was surprised by the invitation, but also hesitant. I asked Emily if Mark and Sarah would be there, and she said yes, of course they would be. She added that they were planning a big celebration after the ceremony, and that I was welcome to join them. The thought of sitting through the graduation ceremony, watching Emily accept her diploma while Mark and Sarah cheered her on, made me feel sick. And the idea of attending a party at their house, surrounded by their friends and family, seemed like torture. I told Emily that I appreciated the invitation, but I didn't think I could attend. Emily got upset. She accused me of being selfish and said I was punishing her for choices she made when she was just a kid. She said she was trying to make things right between us, and that by refusing to come to her graduation, I was showing her that I didn't care about her or her achievements. I tried to explain that it wasn't about not caring for her, but about protecting myself from a painful situation. I told her that seeing her with Mark and Sarah, celebrating as a family, would be too difficult for me. I suggested that maybe we could have our own celebration, just the two of us, at a different time. Emily wasn't having it. She said if I really loved her, I would put aside my feelings and be there for her on this important day. She said my refusal to attend proved that I was the one who had abandoned her, not the other way around. Then she hung up on me. Since then, I've been bombarded with messages from Mark, Sarah, and even some of Emily's friends, all telling me how selfish and cruel I'm being. They say I'm putting my own feelings ahead of my daughter's needs, and that I'm ruining what should be a happy time for her. Part of me feels guilty. I know graduation is a big deal, and I hate the thought of disappointing Emily, but another part of me feels angry and hurt. Where was all this concern for my feelings when Emily chose to live with Mark and Sarah? When she started calling Sarah Mom? When she consistently prioritized her relationship with them over her relationship with me? I feel like I'm being asked to pretend that the last 5 years didn't happen, to smile and play happy families for the sake of Emily's big day. But I'm not sure I can do that without completely breaking down. The thought of watching Emily celebrate with her new family, the family that replaced me, makes me feel physically ill. Should I suck it up and go for her sake, even if it causes me significant emotional pain? Or am I right to protect myself from a situation that I know will be incredibly difficult for me? Update. After my last post, I spent a lot of time thinking about Emily's graduation. The pressure from everyone was intense, and I felt torn between protecting myself and being there for my daughter. In the end, I decided to attend both the ceremony and the celebration at Mark and Sarah's house. I realized I had been equally bearing Emily's educational expenses all these years, despite the cold treatment I received. This fact gave me the strength to face the difficult situation. On the day of the graduation, I arrived at the school auditorium early. I chose a seat near the back, hoping to avoid any awkward interactions with Mark and Sarah. As the ceremony began, I watched Emily walk across the stage to receive her diploma. She looked beautiful and confident. For a moment, I felt a surge of pride, quickly followed by a wave of sadness for all the moments I had missed. After the ceremony, I made my way to Mark and Sarah's house for the celebration. The house was decorated with balloons and banners, and there were already many people there when I arrived. I felt out of place and uncomfortable, but I reminded myself why I was there. Emily seemed surprised to see me. She came over and gave me a quick, awkward hug. Mark and Sarah nodded in my direction but didn't approach me. I could feel the tension in the air. As the party went on, I watched Emily laugh and joke with her friends and with Mark and Sarah. They looked like a perfect family, and I felt like an outsider. The pain I had been carrying for years bubbled up inside me. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I asked Emily if we could talk privately for a moment. She hesitated but agreed, and we stepped out onto the back porch. I took a deep breath and told Emily that I had something important to say. I explained that for the past 5 years, I had been equally sharing her educational expenses with Mark. I told her that despite the way she had treated me, I had continued to support her financially because I wanted the best for her. Then I dropped the bombshell. I said that moving forward, I would no longer be contributing to her educational expenses. I explained that I had made this decision because I felt that my financial support was taken for granted, just as my role as her mother had been. Emily's face went pale. She asked me if I was serious, and I confirmed that I was. I told her that actions have consequences, and that she couldn't expect me to continue supporting her financially when she had consistently pushed me away emotionally. Our conversation quickly drew attention. Mark and Sarah came over, demanding to know what was going on. When Emily told them, they were furious. Mark called me selfish and cruel. Sarah said I was punishing Emily for choices she made as a child. Some of Emily's friends overheard and started whispering among themselves. I stood my ground. I calmly explained that I had been supporting Emily financially for years, despite being treated like an outsider. I said that I was not obligated to continue this support, especially when my role as a mother had been so thoroughly dismissed. The party atmosphere completely evaporated. People started leaving, casting disapproving glances my way. Emily was in tears, accusing me of ruining her graduation day. Mark was red-faced with anger, telling me I should leave. Sarah stood with her arm around Emily, glaring at me. I left the party feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me felt guilty for causing a scene at Emily's graduation celebration, but another part of me felt relieved. For years, I had been silently bearing the pain of rejection while still providing financial support. It felt liberating to finally stand up for myself. The next few days were quiet. I didn't hear from Emily or anyone else. I assumed they were all still angry with me. I tried to focus on my own life, telling myself that I had done the right thing by being honest about my feelings and decisions. About a week after the graduation, I received a call from Emily. I was surprised to see her name on my phone screen. When I answered, I could hear that she was crying. Through her sobs, Emily explained that she had just had a conversation with Mark about her college expenses. She said that Mark had told her he couldn't fully support her education because Sarah was pregnant. He said he needed to look after Sarah and save money for the baby. Emily went on to say that Mark had advised her to look for a job to help support her educational expenses. She sounded shocked and hurt, as if she couldn't believe her father would do this to her. As I listened to Emily cry, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me felt justified. For years, I had been the one making sacrifices while Mark and Sarah played the role of the perfect parents. Now, Emily was finally seeing another side of them. But I also felt sad for Emily. Despite everything that had happened between us, she was still my daughter, and I hated to hear her in pain. I remembered how it felt to have my world turned upside down, to feel betrayed by the people I trusted most. Emily then said something that caught me off guard. She told me that she now understood the sacrifices I had made for her. She said she realized how much it must have hurt me to continue supporting her financially while being pushed away emotionally. I listened quietly as Emily apologized for the way she had treated me over the years. She said she had been young and confused, and that she had taken me for granted. She admitted that she had been unfair to me and that she regretted many of her actions. As much as a part of me wanted to comfort Emily and tell her everything would be okay, I knew I needed to maintain the boundaries I had set. I told Emily that I appreciated her apology, but that it didn't change the reality of our situation. I explained to Emily that actions have long-term consequences. I said that while I understood she was young when she made many of her choices, those choices had still deeply hurt me. I told her that trust and relationships take time to rebuild, and that a single apology couldn't undo years of rejection. Emily asked if I would reconsider my decision about her educational expenses. She said she now realized how much she had relied on my support and that she was scared about how she would manage without it. I took a deep breath before responding. I told Emily that I couldn't simply pretend the last 5 years hadn't happened. I explained that while I still loved her, I needed to protect myself emotionally and financially. I suggested that she follow Mark's advice and look for a job to support her education. Emily started crying harder at this point. She begged me to help her, saying she didn't know how she would manage college without my support. She said she was sorry for everything and that she wanted to make things right between us. I remained firm in my decision. I told Emily that part of becoming an adult is learning to deal with the consequences of your choices. I said that while I was sorry she was struggling, I couldn't continue to be her financial support when I had been pushed out of her life in every other way. I suggested to Emily that she speak with her school's financial aid office about scholarships or loans. I also recommended that she start looking for part-time work to help cover her expenses. I told her that many students work their way through college and that while it would be challenging, it was not impossible. Emily seemed to realize that I wasn't going to change my mind. Her tone changed from pleading to resentful. She accused me of being cold and uncaring, saying that a real mother would never abandon her child like this. Her words stung, but I stood my ground. I reminded Emily that I hadn't abandoned her. She had chosen to live with Mark and Sarah, to call Sarah Mom, and to push me out of her life. I said that I was simply adjusting my role in her life to match the relationship she had chosen to have with me. Before ending the call, I told Emily that I was open to working on our relationship if she was genuinely interested in doing so. However, I made it clear that any reconciliation would take time and effort on both our parts, and that it wouldn't change my decision about her educational expenses. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time, processing the conversation. I felt a mix of sadness, anger, and relief. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh, if I should give Emily another chance. But another part of me felt like I was finally standing up for myself after years of being taken for granted. Over the next few weeks, I received several angry messages from Mark and Sarah. They accused me of being vindictive and cruel, saying I was punishing Emily for their mistakes. Some of Emily's friends also reached out, telling me I was being a terrible mother. I didn't respond to any of these messages. I knew that no matter what I said, they would twist my words to fit their narrative of me as the bad guy. Instead, I focused on taking care of myself. I started seeing a therapist to work through my feelings about the situation. I also threw myself into my work and my hobbies, trying to build a life that wasn't centered around the pain of my broken family. Emily didn't contact me again for several weeks. When she did, her tone was different. She sounded tired and stressed. She told me that she had found a part-time job and was trying to figure out her college finances. She said it was harder than she had expected and that she was struggling to balance everything. I listened to Emily without offering solutions or support. I told her I was proud of her for taking responsibility for her education. I also reminded her that this was a consequence of her past choices and that learning to handle difficult situations was part of growing up. Emily didn't ask for money this time, which I appreciated. Instead, she asked if we could start having regular phone calls to stay in touch. I agreed, but I made it clear that rebuilding our relationship would take time and that she shouldn't expect things to go back to normal right away. As the weeks turned into months, Emily and I slowly started to rebuild our relationship. Our phone calls became more frequent and less awkward. Emily shared her struggles with balancing work and school, and I offered advice when she asked for it. She also started to open up about her feelings regarding the past few years, acknowledging the hurt she had caused me. I remained firm in my decision not to financially support Emily's education, but I did start to help her in other ways. I taught her how to budget, helped her look for scholarships, and gave her advice on studying efficiently while working. These interactions felt more balanced and healthy than our previous dynamic. Emily also started to distance herself somewhat from Mark and Sarah. She told me that she had realized how much they had influenced her feelings towards me over the years. She said she was trying to form her own opinions and make her own choices now. As for Mark and Sarah, they eventually stopped trying to guilt me into supporting Emily financially. I heard through Emily that they were struggling with their own issues. Sarah's pregnancy was difficult, and they were facing financial strain. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction at this, but mostly I just felt sad for everyone involved. Looking back on everything that happened, I still believe I made the right choice. It was painful and difficult, but it was necessary for my own well-being and for the possibility of building a healthier relationship with Emily in the future. I've learned that it's possible to love someone while still maintaining boundaries and looking after yourself. The situation with Emily is still evolving. We're not as close as we once were, and I doubt we ever will be again. Too much has happened. Too many hurtful words have been said. But we're finding a new way to relate to each other, one that's based on mutual respect rather than obligation or guilt. I don't know what the future holds for us. I hope that Emily will continue to mature and that our relationship will continue to improve. But I also know that I can't pin all my hopes and happiness on that. I'm learning to find fulfillment in other areas of my life, to be happy with myself regardless of my relationship with Emily. In the end, I've realized that being a good parent doesn't always mean giving your child everything they want. Sometimes it means teaching them hard lessons about consequences and responsibility, and sometimes it means putting your own emotional health first so that you can be the best version of yourself, for your own sake, and for the sake of any relationship you might have with your child in the future.